Hi guys, welcome to another Dart tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about object-oriented programming in Dart. What is object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm centered around objects and their interaction. It organizes software design around objects rather than functions and logic. And you might ask me, what does this mean? Don't worry. During the course of this tutorial, I'm going to explain what an object is, how we get to create an object from a class, introduce us to the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming, and I'm going to be showing you series of examples to back up everything I'm going to be explaining in this tutorial. The first thing you need to understand is that there is no object without a class. So what is a class? A class is a blueprint or template for creating objects. It defines the attribute and behavior that object we have. There are 2 things I want us to take note of when creating a class for an object. Number 1 is the attribute, and number 2 is the behavior. What is an attribute? Attribute simply means the property that an object is going to exhibit or have. And we normally use variables for this. Just like the example we have on the screen here, we have an house as an object. An house will definitely have door as property. It will have windows as property. It will have numbers of rooms as property. This can be created using variables. The next one is the behavior, which is also known as the method. What are the things that you can do with a house? You can open and close the door, which gives ability to enter into your house. You can turn on and off your lights. You can open and close your windows. These are things that you can do with a house. Now you will see for the behavior we have method. What is a method? Method is just another name for function. So in class, when we create a function, we call it a method. Now what is an object? An object is an instance of a class. It represents a specific entity that has actual values assigned to its property. What this simply means is that it is what we're able to create from this blueprint, which is our class, which is like the reality of our class. When you have a blueprint for a house, it hasn't materialized yet. That actual house which you have built is the object of that class, which is also known as the blueprint or template. So let's dive more into object. An object is a representation of a real-world entity. For example, a car. Now, a car will have a blueprint where you're going to define the property and the attribute. For example, a car will have a door, a car will have tires, a car will have window. Now, what are the behavior of a car? You can drive a car. That's a behavior. Based on this blueprint which has been created, which is the class, you can now create an instance, an object from this blueprint. Let's look at a person. For example, we have 2 hands. So you set these variables when you're creating a class. You can say number of eyes, 2, number of leg, 2, number of arm, 2, and then what can a person do? A person can eat, a person can sleep, a person can run. These are the behaviors of a person, which is also known as the method. Let's say you are creating a banking app software, and this banking app software would definitely have users which will create bank accounts. Now, can you tell me in the comment section what are going to be the property of a bank account? So the properties of a bank account will be the username, the account number, the gender, the age, and so on. And who can guess what is going to be the behavior? The behavior will simply be able to transfer money, or be able to withdraw money, and so on. Now let's look at example of the class in that. When you're creating a class in that, the first thing is that you write the keyword class, and then you give it a name that is unique to that particular class. So for example, we are creating a class of human. We give it the name human. And then you have the open bracket and the close brackets where you're going to have your properties and your behaviors defined. So the property, just like I said, they are your variable. So for example, an human being, we have an height and we definitely have an age. So this is how we set the properties, which is also your variable, and also you can call it the feed. The next thing is the constructor, which we are going to be talking more extensively in our upcoming series. But what is a constructor? A constructor is what we use to instantiate an object, and we're going to dive deep into this later. Now, the next thing is the method. The method is simply the behavior. Every human being is expected to grow. So that's what this method simply does. Now, let's create an example in VS Code. And we're going to be creating a class of car, whereby we can instantiate an object of car from it. You create a class outside the void main method. Let's come up here. And now, the first thing is that we use the keyword class. And then let's give it a name that is unique to this particular class, which is going to be car. And then we have our curly brackets. And inside these curly brackets, the first thing is that we're going to be defining our property. Every car we have a brand, and this is of type string. So we can say brand. And then let's assign a brand to it. Let's call it Toyota. And every car, we have a year that it was created. So we can say this is going to be an integer. And then we'll call this here. And then this is going to be 2022. And this is how we create a property for a class. The next thing is, let's see how we can create behavior for our class. Every car must be able to move. So the behavior we're going to be giving this guy is the ability to drive. Every car must drive. So we're just going to say void, and we're going to say drive. This is not going to take a parameter for now. And then let's just print driving. And this is how we create a class in that. The first thing is that we make use of the keyword class, and then we'll give our class a unique name. And then we have our curly bracket. Inside this curly bracket, we'll define our properties, and then we'll define the behavior, which is also known as the method. So to create an object from this class, all we have to do is to go inside our void main method. One very crucial thing I want you to note is that everything in that is an object. Even the primitive data types like number and strings are objects. So what do I mean by this? Remember, when we want to create a variable in that, the first thing is that we write the data type as a string, and we can say name equals to Victor, right? So when we want to create an object from class also, the first thing we do is that we write the class name, which is going to be car, and then we can call this car my car. Are you noticing similarity between this and string? That's why I said every data in that is an object of a class. And to create an object for this car, all we simply need to do is to write car, and then we do it like this. And like this, we've been able to create an object of this class, which is car. So if we come here now and I print my car, and I run this, and here you can see we have instance of a car. What does this mean? It simply means my car is an object of car class. So how do we access the properties of this class? To access it, you can come here and we'll make use of a dot. Once we make use of dot, you can say we have the brand, we have the year. So once I put brand, let me run this now. You can see now I have access to the brand, which is Toyota. If I want to access the year, I can say dot year. And if I run this now, I have access to the year. And also apart from this, I have access to the functionality of this car, which is also known as the behavior, or we can call it the method. To get access to this, all I need to do is to just come here and I can say my car dot, and then you can see I have access to the drive. And if I run this now, if I run this now, you can see I have 2020, and you can see I have driving. So these are the basic things you can do with a class in that. So let me give a quick recap. The car is the class that acts as a blueprint, and then the brand and the year are the properties of this car class. The drive is a method that shows that this car is driving, and then my car is the object, which is also known as the instance of a car. Now please take note of this. The real object is this. We are only saving it inside a variable my car, and that's why it becomes the object itself. Now let's talk about real world example e-commerce app. To understand why object-oriented programming is useful, let's consider a real world example. Imagine you're building an e-commerce app like Amazon. Without OOP, you will need to rewrite the same code for different product type. Now we have different product type on Amazon, e.g. laptop, books, and clothing. But with object-oriented programming, you can create a product class as a blueprint. Then each product, which is a laptop, book, and clothing, become an object of the class. And you can easily add new product type without writing everything. Let's look at an example in VS Code. So the first thing we're going to be doing now is that we're going to create a class called product. Class. And then we're going to name it product. And then this class is going to have name property and it's going to have price property. Every product must have a name and must have a price. So we're going to say string. Then let's give it name. And now let's add the price also. Double. Now we can call this price. And if you could remember, during the course of my presentation, I mentioned something called constructor. And I said I'm going to be explaining it as we move on with this tutorial. And the last example I created, I didn't make use of constructor because of what we call default constructor. What constructor simply does is that it gives us ability to create an instance of a class. And by default, we always have a default constructor. So without me explicitly writing this out like this, So because I have assigned values to my previous example, automatically, we don't need this constructor. We can just make use of default constructor. So let's say, for example, I say the name is going to be, name of the product is going to be MacBook. And the price is going to be, let's say, 200, like this. So I don't necessarily need this constructor because that creates a default constructor for us. So I can come here and I can create an object from this class. So I can say product and I can say my product, for example, or let's call this laptop. And then we can create an object from this as a result of default constructor without having to do this. So another way we can make use of our default constructor is by making these our variables nullable. So now we're not going to be assigning any values to our variable. We're just going to make this nullable, and the same thing to price. We're going to make this nullable. And the reason we are doing this is so that we can create different objects for our class. So let's say we have a object laptop here. I can come here now and I can say laptop.name and then assign a value to this laptop. So I can say this is going to be MacBook now. Let's add semicolon here. And I also can say laptop.price. And I can come here and add $200 to this. Now let's say we want to create another product. We can simply come here and we can say product. And then this time around we're going to be having clothing as the name of our product. And then let's create an object which is going to be product. And like this, we can come down here and we can add laptop. Sorry, can say clothing dots. Then we can give it a name. And then we can call this Gucci. And for the clothing price, we can come here and say price equals to 100, like this. Like this, we've also made use of our default constructor without having to assign value directly to our variable. Using a default constructor sometimes can be very tedious, and there's an alternative for that, and that's the parameterized constructor, which I had here before. So we can come here and just do this. And instead of coming here and saying laptop.name and then assigning a value to it, we can just remove this now. And then we can add this to this. So we can pass in parameters. So the first parameter is name, and then we can come here and then we can give our laptop its name and call it MacBook, and then comma and then we can add the price, which is going to be 200. So like this, we've been able to achieve the same result, but in a more easy and faster way. Let's do the same thing for our clothing. We can come here and then we can call this Gucci, and let's add comma here. We can give the price 100, and let's remove this. I won't be diving deep into constructor. The rest of this is just to show you how we can make use of constructor to create an instance of our class, which is the object. And for the example, which we are currently working on, an e-commerce website, this is how we can create different products based on the class which we have already created. Now, the essence of this constructor is so that number one, we can create an instance of this class. And apart from creating an instance of this class, we can be able to assign values to our properties. So to create a constructor, we take the class name, and then we have open bracket, close bracket. So the this that we have here refers to the current object of this particular class. When we pass a name to this now, let's say we call this MacBook, and then we have this dot price, and this is going to be, let's say, 300. And let's say we create another product and call this laptop 2, and we have product. So this refers to the variable of this current object. So for this one, we can call it HP, and then the price can be 100. So I hope you understand what this means. So we make use of this dot name and then this dot price. Now that will be able to assign value to the current object of this class. So now let's go back to our class and continue what we're doing. So the next thing we're going to be doing is that let's create a method that shows us the details of each product. So we can have void, and then we're going to call this show details. And for now, it's not going to take anything. And what we want to just do is that we want to print the details of each product. So we can have print, and then, so we can have print, and then we can have something like product. Then remove this. We can have product. Let's call this product name. And yeah, we can have name attached to this. And also we can have the price. And we can have price attached to this. So let's change this from laptop 2 to, let's call this clothing. And we're just going to call this Gucci, and the price is $100. So now we can come here and we can say laptop dot show details in order to access the method in this product. And also we can come here and say clothing dot show details. And if we run this now, you can see that we have, for product name for this laptop we have MacBook, and for the price we have $300. And for the product name for this clothing we have Gucci as the name, and for the price we have $100. So this approach makes the code scalable, reusable, and easy to maintain. So we can create different objects of different products from this product class. So why OOP? Number one is modularity. Code is structured into self-contained objects. Number two is reusability. Object and class can be reused. Number three is maintainability. It is easier for debug and scaling. And the last one is flexibility. Changes have minimal impact on other parts of the code. Now, what are the core OOP concepts in that? I'm going to take each of these core concepts in that one after the other, whereby we're going to explain it and give different examples to each. So the first one is encapsulation, which simply means wrapping data and methods together. The second one is inheritance, which means acquiring properties and behavior from existing class. The third one is polymorphism, which means using a single interface for different data type. And the last one is abstraction, which means hiding implementation details. So conclusion, object-oriented programming helps in building scalable, maintainable, and reusable applications. This introduction covers the basics of OOP, the importance of objects and class, real-world use case in that. In the next part of this series, we'll explore class and objects in greater details. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe, drop your question in the comment section, like and share. See you in the next tutorial. Thank you.